Thank you, choir. Our scripture reading today comes from the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 through 13. And I chose a really unique version because when I prepare to preach, I look at lots of different versions. And this is not one I typically use. It's the New International Reader's Version. So NIRV if you're looking things up online. And so Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 through 13. When Jesus entered Capernaum, a Roman commander came to him. He asked Jesus for help. "Lord," he said, "my servant lies at home and can't move. He is suffering terribly." Jesus said, "Shall I come and heal him?" The commander replied, "Lord, I am not good enough to have you come into my house. But just say the word and my servant will be healed. I myself am a man under authority. And I have soldiers who obey my orders. I tell this one, go, and he goes. I tell that one, come, and he comes. I say to my slave, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed. He said to those following him, "What I'm about to tell you is true. In Israel, I have not found anyone whose faith is so strong. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, and they will take their places at the feast in the kingdom of heaven. They will sit with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But those who think they belong in the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness. There they will weep and grind their teeth." Then Jesus said to the Roman commander, "Go. It will be done just as you believed it would." And his servant was healed at that moment. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, good morning, church. Again, it is my privilege to be with you each up here again. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but today we get to start a new sermon series. And Sean, your pastor, is not here. And guess what? Our topic is, as you see, politics. So I don't know if that's him avoiding the topic or if that's giving me an opportunity. And so I'm going to look at it as it's giving me an opportunity this morning. And so how many of you, when you see this, beyond politics, spiritual principles for the election season, how many of you cringe? It's okay to admit it. Yeah, it's okay. Tony, yeah, it's okay. How many of you are excited? Anybody excited? Tony, yeah, okay. Ross, yeah, Ross. So for me, it makes me really excited. And what makes you all know me, but it makes me excited because over the next few weeks, we're going to explore what it looks like to go beyond politics, beyond the surface, and connecting it to our faith. So I'm grateful, truly, for Pastor Sean inviting me to kick off this series with you all today, because politics has been a part of my life forever. So you know that I am involved in politics today, but what you probably don't know about me is that I don't know if it was the 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, but one of those grades, I was voted most likely, this probably won't surprise you all, most likely to become mayor of the town of Rolla, where I was from. See, you laugh. Yeah, it's no surprise. I am the same person as I was back then. Later, in middle school, I told my parents that I was going to be president in the year 2040. And you can see that my license plate is CS 2040 to continue to play fun on this joke. As a junior in high school, I lobbied the Rolla School Board and became the first student in the state of Missouri to be a non-voting student representative on the school board, a practice that's continued for almost 20 years now in Rolla. And of course, you all, I think, know, I've been a registered lobbyist now for more than a quarter of my life. And with that, I'll stop, right? I like politics. I have fun in this space. But even though you may or may not like it as much as I do, we're going to talk about it because we're marching toward November 5th, our next presidential election. And it's important that we as a people of faith engage in and examine politics. It seems like every 4 years, or at least every 4 years that I have participated in the presidential elections, that this is the most important, on TV and the news, this is the most important election of our lifetime. But this year is unique. Vanity Fair published a story last month that said that in the last 15 presidential bids, friends, that is 60 years, in the last 60 years, one candidate has led by 5 or more points in the polls for at least 3 weeks until this election. This election truly is unique. We are a divided country, and there are 7 states that, as a political nerd, that are believed that will determine the outcome of the election. These are Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Nevada. And to show you how divided we are, I want to show you again. I live this space. I'm a nerd, and so I have to nerd out for one moment. This is how close we are, friends. This is how divided I would say we are. These are those 7 states and polls. We know from past elections that polls are not the story, but that's how close they are. If 7 states, every poll has within between 1 and 1.5%. One candidate or the other. This is a unique election, and these states highlight the division within our politics to a unique level, which is why it's important that we look through politics through our faith lens and in a principled way. And so in the next few weeks, we're going to address the intersection between this faith, our faith, and this political world that we live in. And so Pastor Sean and I know that tensions are high during this time. And so today, I'm going to kick us off, and we're going to talk about looking through and thinking about politics through the lens of having integrity in adversity. But first, what does it mean? What exactly do we mean by integrity? As I shared with the kids, integrity is this kind of ambiguous word, right? We say it often. The actual definition means that from Webster means the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. So tell me what that means, right? Like that still doesn't tell me what integrity actually is. And so integrity, as I shared with the kids, is often viewed as doing the right things through words or actions when no one else is watching, that you are trustworthy and reliable. Integrity is something, I say this tongue-in-cheek, is something that we have a high belief that all politicians have based on the commercials we see, right? Okay. Well, let's start with our scripture reading today, where we read the story of the centurion or the commander in the version that we read today. There are 7 different stories within the New Testament that describe centurions. And so who are and is the centurion? Well, the centurions they're Roman. They're also known as Gentiles. They were not in the habit of being fond of Jewish people. And a centurion in the time of Jesus' life was a Roman soldier by the name, right? You can kind of imply, in charge of approximately 100 men in the military. It was a position of authority. It was a position that they likely earned through being tested in whether it be battles or through making sure that they were a person of integrity and were going to be loyal toward the Roman leadership. Typically, in Jesus' day, they were at least 30 years old to be a centurion and would have had to receive several recommendations from leaders in the military and actually serve several years in the military. This isn't just an appointed position. The Roman regime placed the military around Capernaum to keep order and ensure that there were no uprisings among the Jewish people. But in our story with our centurion this morning, this Roman centurion exhibits integrity beyond his nationality. It's noteworthy that this story is when Jesus is in Capernaum, which is his hometown. It's in Capernaum where Jesus' ministry began, and he started using his healing powers and recruited his first disciples. So it's likely that this centurion saw Jesus beginning to give and perform miracles throughout Capernaum. How many of you have watched the series, follow the series The Chosen? Do any of you follow? couple of you. So it's currently seasons 1 through 4 are complete, and The Chosen is Dallas Jenkins. I would describe it as the creator, Dallas Jenkins' version of telling Jesus' life and ministry. It isn't meant to be taken literally, but it's an interpretation, and I think he does an incredible job of putting together possible context and personifying, putting what the disciples, what Jesus, what the relationships in and among those around Jesus could have looked like. Probably didn't happen in the exact way, of course, but could have looked like. And so in the most recent season of The Chosen, Dallas Jenkins highlights this story, and I want us to watch this scene because I want us to understand the interaction. We see on paper these 5 verses, these 30, 45 seconds of reading, but what we don't see is some of the context and possible relationship dynamics. And so, in the show, the centurion who you're going to see, his name is Gaius. And Gaius's character has been built up throughout the previous seasons, and it culminates into this scene. And as you watch this scene, I would ask that you consider the integrity. Think about how Gaius is exhibiting integrity. If you could watch this scene.
You have the best of.
Praetor Gaius. Lord. My servant boy is lying paralyzed at home. He has been sick for so long, and now he is suffering terribly, near death. Take me to him. Lord. You call him Lord? I am not worthy to have you come into my home, and I know you would not be comfortable as a Jew in a Roman's home. But you only need to say the word, and he will be healed. I'm not worthy. The truth about the child, he's actually my son. I am so ashamed I shouldn't even be asking you, but I am. And I know you can do it.
Master, I never thought I'd say this, but he is worthy to have you do this for him. He loves our people. He has helped us.
I know.
Do not trouble yourself. You can heal him from a distance with only a word of command. I also have authority with men under me. If I say to one, go, he goes. If I say to another, come, he comes. Anything you command in this world will happen. I know it. Even this.
Stand up.
What?
Rise. Did you all hear this, man? Truly, I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I was rejected in my own hometown, and I'm threatened by the religious leaders of my own people, and yet this man, a Gentile, has more bold confidence in what he believes that I can do than anyone I have yet encountered. Go. It has been done for you according to your belief.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have brightened my day to encounter this kind of faith.
What happened?
Gaius had faith that Jesus could heal his servant without even coming to his house.
We know he can do that.
But such faith from a Gentile.
Exactly.
There's so much that I wish I could share of the nuances that you see in how in Gaius's life that are led up to. And so I encourage you, if you're interested, to watch The Chosen and see Gaius's integrity seen throughout the Chosen's journey. I see Gaius exhibiting a person of high integrity in how he carries out throughout the seasons the daily tasks of a centurion, but he's open, clearly open, looking for truth in places where he may not see it yet. I see integrity in Gaius in how he admits that Jesus has the authority, even though he's Roman. I see Gaius exhibiting an example of integrity in a political sphere when he says he's not worthy of going, that Jesus is not worthy of going into his house because he's a Gentile. He acknowledges here that there's a heritage in politics that separates him from Jesus in their time. Politics that Rome is controlling Capernaum, and the politics and the ramifications of a Roman soldier being seen and asking Jesus to be a miracle worker. That is action. Those are actions of integrity. The centurion is providing us in the chosen. Gaius is providing us an example of someone in Jesus' time who is that person of integrity in adverse situations. It's also noteworthy that this story in Scripture is the first healing of miracle of Jesus that he performed in a long-distance way. And, of course, as we noted a couple of times, it isn't even a healing of someone who is Jewish. So in politics, politics can and often, politicians do often exhibit integrity. Whether it be a Roman soldier or in our context today, agree or disagree with the policy itself, politicians, we see integrity in politicians such as John McCain casting a deciding vote in the Senate late in his life. In past political lifetimes, we see integrity in the closeness of votes in the political world. In 1956, the first time the Senate passed their version of the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. This is the act, friends, that created our interstates. That first vote, it passed by a vote of 41 to 39. There's 100 members of the Senate. So what about those others? Well, 9 folks were not present, and 6 senators voted present. Politicians, in today's context, get absolutely hammered. You see attack ads when they vote present. But actually, it's those present votes in 1956 that likely saved what became known later to develop all of our interstate highways that we see and use today. Integrity is seen not only directly in the political sphere with elected officials, but with those who are who are kind of tangentially related to. It may not be directly seen in a vote or passage of something, but a little more quietly. Francis Collins is someone in politics who I've watched from afar and lived and continue to I believe that he lives a life of integrity. Does anybody actually know who Francis Collins is? So Francis Collins is the man up there. He was the director of the National Institutes of Health. From 2009, he was appointed by President Obama, served through President Trump's administration, and retired in 2022 during, of course, the Biden administration. His credentials are just incredible. He's a PhD. He is a medical doctor. He ran the Human Genome Project, and I don't even know what that is, but what that did is it identified, mapped, and sequenced all of the genes in the human body. Basically, in layman terms, he led the effort that created the reading or the script, manuscript, if you will, of a complete set of the DNA of a human being. And so what this means is that we can now create personalized medicine approaches because we understand how the human genome is made up, to better understand genetic diseases. Francis Collins is also an evangelical, born-again Christian. He loves playing the guitar and was in a rock band with the NIH scientists. Can you imagine that? NIH scientists in rock bands. So you can Google, you can YouTube his songs. His integrity jumps out at you, of course, when you read his credentials, but when you learn about how he uses his passion even for music to explore music as therapy for neurological and other disorders, or how his music he uses his music to create spoofs of songs. We all know the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Well, he created a spoof called Somewhere Past the Pandemic. I encourage you to Google it. It's pretty funny. While I was working at the University of Missouri System, I had the honor of meeting politicians like Senator Roy Blunt. And politicians, like most of us, are looking for ways to leave a legacy. For Senator Blunt, he was the chair of the budget committee that oversaw the budget recommendations for the National Institutes of Health. And that's how I began to first understand and learn about Francis Collins. From 2003 to 2013, NIH's budget lost ground from previous years, with its purchasing power declined by 20%. After Senator Blunt and Director Collins met and begun to have a relationship, they began working together. Dr. Collins said this about Senator Blunt after both of their retirements. He said, "Senator Blunt has the character we need more of in our world: intelligence, curiosity, integrity, dedication, compassion, and selflessness." Why did he say this? Because from 2014 to 2022, NIH's budget saw a 50% increase in funding, including a 5-fold increase for research to try to find cures to diseases for Alzheimer's and other dementia-related diseases. Director Collins and Senator Blunt forged a friendship that one wouldn't have thought. An Obama-appointee and a Republican senator from a red state. Their friendship culminated into what I was super excited about: Francis Collins coming to Columbia for the opening of the Next Gen building on Mizzou's campus, and that's what that picture is from. That picture is from where he actually joked, it was in one of the news articles, that maybe in his retirement he could come and do work here at the Next Gen facility. When the integrity of two politicians, and yes, I think Dr. Collins is a politician, among being a researcher, a physician, they've come together in the midst of adversity. They can work together and did in divided government to do amazing things for our country and for the people, for all of us, for the collective good. Dr. Collins just wrote a book that I just started. It's called The Road to Wisdom: On Truth, Science, Faith, and Trust. And in the first chapters of the book, he sets a tone of how we as a people can be a people of integrity, of trust. He admits failures of his and scientists like him had during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, where he admits they didn't account for the variances across the country, where he admits that while the early days of the pandemic, hospitals in the coastal areas were being overrun with COVID patients and who were incredibly sick, but in the rural areas of the country where COVID hadn't hit, that the message needed to be tweaked. He said that instead of communicating messages such as, "This is the best recommendation we have today, but it might change tomorrow," they communicated a message that was wrong and they should have done different, but that message was, "Do this now." An admission of these failures and having conversation with those who have different perspectives is something that he works and says that he works to live into every single day. Dr. Collins shared in the book that when thinking about trusting a person or something, we unconsciously use criteria to judge what we're hearing. whether we should trust them or not. And these are the four things that he lists: integrity, competence, aligned values, and humility. That when we hear something, when we ingest something, a story, meet someone, these are the values, these are the things that we look to see, is it trustworthy? And see, integrity is up there. Can you see examples? Can you see where his example exposes his and other leaders' flaws? When was the last time you've gone through the exercise Dr. Collins did and reflected on where you may not have been viewed of a person of integrity, competence, had aligned values, and it didn't seek to better understand the other person? In society today, we're often going our separate ways, not seeking to find common ground. And too often, our social media are echo chambers of people who we agree with. Our news sources are personalized to our liking. Algorithms are put in front of us of similar stories of what we've read before. The news is designed to tell us these negative and often spun in fear-based manners. In my 3 years, the only 3 years of my career where I was outside of politics, I worked for the annual conference leading the Mozambique Initiative. And it's in only those 3 years where I felt myself, remember, I've been active and loved politics my entire life. It's only those 3 years where I felt cynical about politicians and politics at all levels. And when I re-entered the political world, I realized that it's easy to become cynical when you don't know the people, when you only see the flyer in the mail or the 30-second attack ad, when you don't hear their story and don't have the ability to share yours. You only see, and when you do get to have that, you see that there are people of integrity of elected offices and in appointed offices. Of course, it isn't 100% rosy all of the time, but I've gotten to know Democrats who have taken difficult votes on issues that their leadership disagree with, and I've gotten to know and hear Republican legislators understand and be torn up and vocalize that they're torn up at a vote, knowing that it might politically hurt them, but yet it's the right thing to do. Integrity in adverse situations is difficult. And that's why in his book, Dr. Collins created a pledge. And as we think about adversity we'll face as a society and as a people in the upcoming election during the next month, we're going to face challenges of our integrity and need to kind of think about those issues. I encourage us to think about this kind of pledge and think about things through this lens. And I'm going to read the pledge that's in his book. It's on page, I think, 2. Let me see. It is on page, I have it here. Oh, goodness. Do I not have it here? The pledge is on the screen, very, very small. And what you don't see, Phoenix, can you hand me that piece of paper? That would be the pledge. Thank you. What I encourage us to do is think about political issues and policy issues through this lens. This pledge says this, and I'll start from the top paragraph. It says, I pledge that from this day forward, I will seek to be part of the solution to our society's widespread divisiveness, which is hurting individuals, families, communities, our nation, and our world. I will actively seek out opportunities to engage in dialogue with those who have different views from mine by respectful listening. I will strive to understand their perspectives better, to identify our shared deeper values, and to build a bridge across the gap that divides us. When sifting incoming information, I will seek to be a wise consumer. Taking into account my own biases, I will carefully assess the plausibility of the claim as well as the integrity, competence, and humility of the source in order to decide whether the information is likely to be trustworthy. I will resist the temptation to speak out speak about, write about, or share on social media information that claims to be true but is of uncertain validity. And lastly, and I think some of the most important part, I will bring a generous spirit to all my interpersonal actions, refusing to ascribe evil intentions to others simply because of different political or societal beliefs. I will be slow to take offense. Loving my neighbor will be my goal. As we think about the next month, we're going to be inundated with lots of negativity, but yet we, as people of faith, are called to rise above that. We are people of integrity, and I know that we can. It's our challenge. It will be a challenge to be people of integrity among